So we can start? Can you hear me through the phones? That's brilliant. Okay. So as you can see from the title, I'm going to try and rush through these slides. There's a little bit of theoretical background, but the real reason we're actually here is because we have with us some, not only just members of the school, but also of key partnership teams here. If I can actually introduce those first of all. Here before me here, we've got Mr. Brad Kearns, who is the coordinator for the primary school ETeam. And these two young ladies here are members of the ETeam. Now, the E stands for environment, so we're talking about environmental conservation. It's not really about what they're doing, but actually how they build partnerships in order to achieve what they're doing. That's what we're really talking about today. To the right of Mr. Kearns is Jeremy Williams. He is the president of Interact, which is a youth association associated with Rotary, and he'll be talking a little bit about how partnerships develop in order to improve actions within the community. Then we have two other ladies here who represent Paris. Paris, not the capital of France, but the a parents' association of what was Raffles International School and is now actually Raffles World Academy. Paris sounds rather more exotic than Parwa, so we kept it with Paris. And they would be talking about the partnerships that are developed not only between the school and the parents, but also parents and other groups in how to bring about well-being in the school as a whole. And last but not least, we have Zema Moti, who is the president of the, vice president of the Anti-Bullying Committee at the school. Now, why that particular organisation? Because it is, I suppose, one of the first organisations at Raffles World Academy which is purely student-led. Most of the other organisations, as you can imagine, like in many schools, actually have a teacher at the head of it. In the terms of the Anti-Bullying Committee, although there is a teacher liaison, it does not the teacher does not actually run the ABC committee. It is purely student-led and student-organised, and all their activities are actually designed and run by the students. Okay, so how then does community partnership foster well-being? What do we understand by well-being? Well, there are many definitions, but we say, as I put on the top left there, it encompasses physical, social, emotional, cognitive, and spiritual well-being. So there are many aspects of well-being that we need to address. Perhaps we can see this as a model. What do we understand when we have well-being, what does it mean? A positive sense of personal identity, self-worth, and purpose. It also talks about supportive relationships between parents, fellow learners, teachers, and others. And also a sense of belonging and participation within the community. So if you like, that's a kind of long definition of what well-being is. But there are three important aspects of it: the individual, the relationship with others, and the function of that group within the community as a whole. Now, we're saying that it's not only about student well-being, but actually this kind of model also applies to all stakeholders. Now, this is where the trick comes. Does it change?
Just press the space bar.
Which one? Perhaps I should have... You see, this is partnership between the schools and parents. Okay, just better stay there. Okay, so articulating well-being across the community. I'm not going to bore you with all the words here. I've made this copy so that the KHK can actually make a copy of it, and if you want to download it, you can. You're very welcome. But there are, what we talked about is individual well-being. There's the physical, social, emotional. If we talk about, for example, physical, being healthy, fit, strong, having a good nutritional diet, being sporty, attractive. We're talking about spiritual at the bottom. We're talking about the values, morals, ethics, and beliefs, altruism, and the transcendental nature of our understanding of where we are in the world and the universe. Emotional, your self-esteem, how expressive you are, how balanced, caring, empathic, resilient. Most of these things you may recognize if you come across the International Baccalaureate, that they are part of the learning profile of the IB. But all of those individual well-being characteristics can also apply to community as well. And that's, I think, what we're trying to do, our vision, is to take individual well-being and turn it into community well-being. So, for example, physical becomes promoting healthcare for all, making good, healthy choices in terms of diet and your lifestyle, exercise, sport, food, water standards, environmental protection and conservation. Social will be good neighborliness, charity, cooperation, collaborative action, etc. Emotional, self-esteem becomes something of a sense of social justice and fairness, perseverance and negotiation, seeking optimal win-win solutions. Now that aspect of win-win solutions is critical in terms of actually building partnerships for community well-being. Okay, next. So connecting and mobilizing community stakeholders. If you look at it, most schools have this kind of relationship. You have the parents and friends, the teachers and the students. These are the stakeholders within the community. But also there's a liaison too with the business and the external community. So you have the internal community of the school and its relationships with the wider community. The purpose really of what we want to see in terms of building partnerships is to develop and build the connectedness of the school within not just the local community but the wider community, not just with other schools but with other organizations within the community and further afield, so locally, nationally, internationally, globally. Once we get the cooperation and partnership between these factors here, the ad hoc cooperation, if you like, seeing a particular project and saying, okay, how are we going to get this done? The idea is to build synergy through working well with building partnerships with all of these things, but then the group, the community as a whole, now looking about how that can develop partnerships with others. So it's an outward moving process of developing partnership and collaboration to achieve ends. Teamwork, it's probably more than teamwork. We can have teamwork within Paris, with the Paris Association, within students, by teachers and so on, but the teamwork that is geared to a particular objective that understands the needs of other partners, that's going to be critical to the success of the project. Okay. Empowering stakeholders to climb what we call HEART's participation ladder. Last year, when I was at the same meeting as this, we talked about student leadership. At that time, we were talking about the Anti-Bullying Committee, for example, as a case of, if we go up the ladder, youth-initiated and directed activity. HEART's ladder is quite a cynical device in some ways because it says that schools are very good at using people like students, sometimes for their own ends. It's as cosmetic, it's tokenistic, it's a decoration. I bring, for example, two lovely girls here from the primary school. Are they there to make you go, oh, isn't that sweet? That's decoration. If that was their only purpose, then we would be defeating the object of what we're talking about in terms of partnership. What we're looking for, not only amongst students, but also with regard to Paris and the other organizations, that they are not simply there to be tokens. They're not simply there to be assigned a particular role, as often students are, or to be, in an organization which is adult initiated, where there are shared decisions with young people, but what's the next step above that? Can we get something that's youth-initiated, like ABC, for example, and directed? At the end of the day, it's not just about youth, as HEART talks about, it's actually about stakeholders. So in terms of parent partnership, it's not simply about parents coming on to filter bad news for the student leadership or to raise funds in a bake sale, but it's actually about how can parents cooperate with the school in developing curriculum. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. Next. Then we've got the partnerships with business. Now, I'm going to really go through this very, very quickly because there are so few of you. We want to get onto the nitty-gritty here. When we're talking about building partnerships, there are a number of stages we go through. The preliminary planning, the questions we ask. How can a partnership add to student experience? What are our learning needs? Why can't we do this alone? And that's the reason why partnerships are so important, because it is synergistic. Who might be our potential partners? Look inside and outside school for a good fit. Involve parents and friends. And don't be afraid either to empower stakeholders. The risk often is schools tend to be a bit cautious. Certainly give parents power, but not too much power. And when it gets a little bit, a bit difficult or uncomfortable, to draw back from it. Often the issue here is about being entrepreneurial and taking the risk. Being courageous enough to say, okay, let's go with it. Let's see where it leads, rather than continually planning, but actually go into action. Okay, let's go for the next one. My last point there was, don't plan, spend all your time planning and planning and planning. Even if you take an action, even if there's a mistake, it's better. You learn more from that than continually planning and getting nowhere at all. Laying the foundation, have robust discussions. Now, Mrs. Farina Moti over there is the chair of Paris. We have some very robust discussions from time to time, and they're quite regular, and that's the whole part of it. We need to be able to trust each other. And it's exactly the same too with the student organizations and teacher-led organizations as well. It's about the building of trust, being tolerant of each partner's desired level of involvement. Not everybody wants to be involved. What is the level of involvement that's tolerable? Assessing the impact of partnership on students, looking for real engagement and not vague promises. People will tell you, oh yes, I'll do that. And then 1 month later, when it comes down to it, they will not, they'll pull out. And it's really a matter of communication. And define what the measurable goals of the partnership are. So we talk about SMART when it comes to academic measurements of performance, but we need to be smart too about what the outcomes are of any kind of partnership. Okay, let's move on. Implementation. One or two things here just very important. They don't have to take them in order. Ensure that activities are fun and social. If partnerships aren't fun, they'll fail. And that's the critical issue here, that we need social activities where everybody can feel a part of it. And also that we acknowledge that. And we provide training for parties where necessary. Now, just moving on very quickly. Sustaining a partnership. I think this is one of the key things here. There's a whole list of good common sense things. Look at the one just sort of third above from the bottom. Celebrate achievements. I think it's very important that when you've got a partnership and you've got a project in mind, that even if you're moving step by step towards it, you celebrate each of those steps. It's not simply a matter of getting to the end and the project is completed, but to celebrate the fact that you're actually making progress. And where there is no progress or where there is a mistake, bury the dead quickly. Don't dwell on it. Don't have recriminations. It's not a blame game. It's simply a matter of actually pushing things forward. That didn't work. Let's try something else. Let's move forward. And partnerships of business, again, the evaluation. Obviously conduct regular evaluations and monitoring. And if the partnership is ending, have a debrief discussion to determine, did it work? Is there any point in actually being together? What is going to be the next project? Now, I've put down here two organizations, Sketchers and Energy. These are two organizations particularly with whom Raffles has built a close bond. Not because they are commercial organizations selling us stuff. Yes, of course, there is a common ground there. Often the partnerships that business undertake with schools is because they have a bottom line to keep. But nonetheless, there are some shared values. And it's very important to note just how much, once groups like Sketchers, for example, and Energy are on board, how that has led to other projects where these companies have been able to sponsor students, train students, initiate activities, and think about working with the school on different kinds of projects which are not necessarily self-serving. Remember one of those key characteristics, altruism, doing something which is not just for your own good, but for others. Okay, and that's where I will stop for a moment, because I'd like to pass the mic, and I'm not asking the Paris now to read everything there, but to perhaps, I mean, you can have a look at this, but just listen to what Paris has to say about its own experiences with regard to building partnerships in the school. I don't know which one wants to go first. Farina, okay? Okay. We don't always get agreement in partnerships.
Okay, we were formed about 4 years ago. And since then, we actually decided to have a constitution that has been put in place about 2 years back. We have annual elections, and we have regular meetings. And as Julian said, we have a very open door policy. A lot of times our meetings can be a bit robust. We do have some differing opinions, but the nice thing is that we always come out finding a good middle ground that works for both parties. We have very active focus groups, the Arabic focus group. We have lots of conversation clubs that run at school. We have the traffic and safety focus group that actually works very well with the neighbors and the community around, surrounding Raffles, because traffic is always an issue and people coming in and out. So we're trying to work together to find amicable solutions. Through the traffic and safety focus group, we also run the Buckle Up campaign, where every year group, we've gotten complimentary workshops run by Buckle Up in the back. So they've come in last year, run this throughout the entire school, and they've done it with all new grades in KG1 and KG2. We
change the slide because we've got some of the activities. Okay. We'll talk about the workshops and the seminars a little bit there.
All right. So here you can see there's a picture of the Buckle Up campaign. This has been run for the different year levels. Then we had a first aid and CPR workshop that ran earlier this year. And every year to commemorate breast cancer, we have a workshop which is organized by the school doctor in conjunction with Paris. And we invite different stakeholders like various members of the community as well as parents that come in and attend these workshops. So we do things on an educational level as well as social. And we do bring in the fun element as well. So these are some of our contributions. We've contributed these huge chess sets in some of the indoor atriums, which has been quite fun, especially in the summer months. We've been organizing chess tournaments as well. And another one of our initiatives was we've increased the mother tongue section in the school library. That was our initiative last year. And then these are just some pictures of some of the community events we've had. We've commemorated the different religious and cultural festivals, including Eid, Diwali, Christmas, and a few weeks back we had Chinese New Year as well. So it's been a fun way of getting the community together. The other nice activities we've had has been movie nights, and we're involved in lots of other fun activities. One of the initiatives this year that was, I think, that has been quite different from various other schools, we have a social media coordinator that runs our Facebook and Twitter page. And this was viewed with a lot of skepticism by the school management, but we have actually been monitoring it quite closely and it works quite well. The only sad part is that not a lot of people actually contribute and participate. So that has been an issue with us in Paris, that we find the partnerships work really well, but this year we have a problem with volunteers. A lot of people don't actually volunteer, so it's been just a few people that are actually pushing the train ahead. But I think we've been doing quite well. One of our other initiatives is also we have cultural liaison officer as from this year, and she's a member of the local Emirati population. We found this was quite necessary because last year we had a few incidents with different cultural groups. And by having the cultural liaison officer on board as a strong member of Paris, we are able to run events like National Day. And she comes on board and advises us and tells us, look, this is acceptable, this is not, this is allowed, this is not allowed. So it's actually worked quite well. And then I'm going to hand you over to Saira, who's actually our student liaison officer as from this year. And she works with ABC and other student-led initiatives and groups. Thank you very much. Can you hear me? I am not a mic person.
So is this for the camera?
Oh, it's for the camera, sorry. So basically we started working with the students last year, but it was totally experimental. Julian actually recommended, because when we talk about community, it's not just us as parents working with the teacher or the school. When we talk about community, for us, students, they're the bigger picture, but we've never worked with them. So last year we were advised by Julian to actually try it and see how it does. So we worked with the CAS students, which is the
Action Service.
Yes, I always forget what they stand for. So we worked with them and it worked very well. We helped with them with fundraisers, other issues they were facing, like making arrangements for the fundraisers. So we helped them out that way. So this year we, like Farina said, we created a post of a student liaison, and I work with the high school students. I work very closely with ABC. That's the Anti-Bullying Committee. I've attended a couple of seminars, and whatever info I get, I pass it on to them. But bear in mind, I'm more of a mentor. I don't run the club. I don't interfere in their day-to-day running. If there's an issue that they can't resolve, or they're at a deadlock to make a decision, or they don't know how to go about things, that's when they bring me in and say, okay, we're facing this, how do we get along? So I would consider myself more of a mentor figure, and I've worked with ABC this year and last year. I've worked with the E committee the year before, and I will very shortly be working with Interact and CAS on their upcoming projects as well.
Thank you very much.
So, thank you.
Okay, we'll change the slide for this moment. Okay, I want to give
Just one thing, with the with the student liaison officer, I think you help roll things, get the ball rolling.
It runs smoothly, like if they have an issue of getting a date for a venue or a date to meet, like they were facing a problem initially to find a place and a date to meet, so I worked with the school management to sort that out. So the glitches that they face, they come to us just like, okay, we're stuck, what do we do? So we help them roll the ball, like Farina said. Thank you.
Okay, so you see the next slide is for the ETeam. So Brad will introduce, and then he will refer also directly to the students telling their story.
Yeah, thank you. I'm the coordinator of the junior school ETeam. There are two ETeams at the school who work together, but because the campus is separated in the day-to-day runnings with secondary school and primary, we have two separate committees with students represented from every grade level on both of the committees. I'd like to introduce you to Cheyenne and to Gomahar. You might come on up, girls. Two of my more active members of the committee, and we do a lot of events, and a lot of the stuff that is driven and the things that we do are the ideas that the students come to us with. We have a meeting once a week for an hour. We do an active get-together on things. We've got an ongoing garden, an eco-garden, which is our baby or our pet thing that we run. But we also have competitions. At the moment, they're just running a competition. Would you like to? I might hand you over to Cheyenne, and she might explain the mural competition that we're doing.
So in the eco garden, we have many white blank walls, and we thought that we would give like each grade a theme, and one class would win, and then they would paint each of their own wall with like the theme of the eco garden or whatever they're given.
So some of the themes that the children came up with is trying to connect it to what they're learning in the classroom. So that interrelates with what the teachers are doing, and they're communicating with the parents. And we've tried to come up with things like Go Green, recycling, what are some of the other ones? The life cycle of a plant, saving natural resources and animals of the UAE. So the idea is for the children to get involved and update the garden. You can see here there's some blank white walls where the parents are talking to the children. And the idea is to get more people involved. In the country where we live in, there is not a lot of greenery, and there's not a lot around the school. And the Paris group are interacting with the ETeam. We have parents volunteering to come and help with gardening and to help with the painting, to help the children out. And you can see here the children interact as well. They invited their parents just last week to come along, and they showed them some of the medicinal plants that are growing in our garden and explained. The parents talked about their experiences. They also went around the school. The way we build our partnerships at the school is, again, it's central around the children being a school and working with the staff, but it's minimal. I'm one staff member on a team that is driven by the children, and we're interacting regularly with Paris, regularly with the parents, but they're also working with maintenance people around the school, the cleaners, to make sure that all the bins are maintained correctly for recycling, and then outside of the school they've got partnerships with the recycling companies to make sure that not only we do not tokenistic, again as Julian was saying, that we're just collecting recycling, but to make sure that that recycling is actually going to be recycled, not just put back into landfill. So we work at all of those different levels. We're working on a few different things. We're working on one called Oil for Good, which is more of a secondary run project, but it's collecting all of the recycled vegetable oil and things from all the homes, the people, the canteen at school or the cafeteria, and then that oil is recycled to make biodiesel, which can be used in engines to run machinery, so the oil's not just put back into the soil or wasted down drains. One of the bigger things that the primary school do is they're running, we have bokashi bins. Now bokashi is a breakdown of plant matter, and that project alone takes a lot of manpower because every child in the school has to be informed on how to use the bins. When they have food scraps, it goes into the bin. Then we need to go and maintain the bins weekly. We need to go and make sure they're topped up. And then there's a juice that comes out of the bottom. The juice is used to water the plants. It's a natural fertiliser. And then the actual broken down plant matter gets put in to make soil. But to do that, we have to liaise with the cafeteria manager and the workers in the cafeteria to ensure that they are also doing that. And it's an all-school, a whole community event. And I might just get you to, I think, if you could go back one, it would be great. Yep, that's great. Another thing that we've also taken up with the primary and secondary ETeam is working with the Turtle Release Centre at Jumeirah, trying to educate the children on what is happening with the turtles in the UAE. And we've been going over there learning how we can rehabilitate them, what to do if they find them in the wild injured. And we recently just went for a visit, and you can see the children looking in the enclosure. And it was parents, children and staff on the visit, and we've been invited to now come back later in the year to work with the group on releasing the turtles. So,
can we just ask the students what they feel for you is the most interesting part of actually being in the ETeam?
what's the most interesting? What do you like most about?
The opportunities we get to be in the ETeam, they're fun, and we get to learn new things, and we get to see new people, make friends, but the main part is we get to learn about the plants and more about nature.
And what do you get to do? I mean, we're talking about partnerships, and we've talked about different people you work with. What is one of your job, like with the other children at school? We've only got a small team on the ETeam. What sort of things do you have to do with the other children in the school?
Tell them about what we do, and we tell them what we're going to be doing. We tell them how we're doing things.
Excellent. And things like turning off the lights, recycling and that, you need to lead the way, don't you? But that goes right back to you. I mean, you even educate your teachers on those sort of things, and you work with your teachers. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about?
It's just like, I like being in the ETeam because the opportunity to help like the earth and to save resources. So also we're moving forward with the school and the green flag. So.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Sit down.
Well done, Phil.
Go past that one as well. Let me introduce you to Jeremy. Jeremy's going to talk to us a little bit about, this is a new group that started off this year, Interact. Jeremy.
Hi. I'm the president of our school's Interact Club. Interact, in a nutshell, is a philanthropy group, and everything that we do has to have sort of an improving effect on the community around us or within the school. We've already initiated 2 projects, and that would be we go to visit students and residents at Senses, which is a school and residence for people with disabilities with special needs. We just keep them company, and it's quite nice. Everybody enjoys it, and it helps to bring down the barriers that some people may have with interacting with people with disabilities. We also teach English to our support staff within the school. So that would be our security guards or our cleaners who don't actually have a lot of English knowledge. And we do that to sort of also create a bond between not only the students and the teachers with the staff, with the support staff, but just to help them in their lives generally, because you know, it brings everyone closer together, and the only difference between us and them is the language barrier. So we try and break that. We've been involved in various events, either Rotary-based or Rotaract-based, such as the Desert Cleanup Campaign, which was hosted by Rotary. It's a well-known campaign that endeavors to try and reduce littering in deserts in order to try and, you know, preserve the nature and also try and preserve the animal life there. We worked in cooperation with Dubai International Academy and the Greenfield Community School as well on that, who also have their own Interact clubs. We're the third of our kind in Dubai. And yeah, we're sponsored by the Rotary Club Jumeirah. Yeah, so what we do, in essence, as you can gather from all of that, is just we help create bonds, and we try and destroy boundaries that needn't be there. And we work alongside with the school with that. We work alongside with the teachers. We're also getting involved with our ETeam as well, with another project that's going to be coming up, known as Apple a Day program, in which we'll be giving an apple a day to the support staff just to keep them healthy as well, and they like it as well, so it's pretty nice. And yeah.
That's fine, because I've just got to make sure that we've got the anti-bullying committee to go on as well. So thank you for that.
Brilliant.
We just push it forward. Okay. Zemboti is the Vice President, as I said, of the Anti-Bullying Committee.
Well, basically, as the Anti-Bullying Committee, we plan to eradicate bullying throughout the school. We want to make the school environment safe for everyone. We want students to enjoy their school lives without the issue of bullying. Now, we were initiated in 2012 by our previous president, who is now in grade 12. And basically, her aim was to stop bullying because she saw the school population increasing, and she knew that bullying would therefore also increase. Basically, we have dedicated ourselves to supporting victims of bullying, and we solve cases like people come to us and tell us, okay, we have a problem with a bully in grade 8, just for example. And then we solve the case, we talk to the victim, we talk to the bully, and basically we make the bully sign a contract to stop bullying the victim.
Does it work? Does it work?
Yes. Usually, we've had around, let's say, 20 cases in this year, and with all the bullies have signed the contract, and we've checked with the victims again after they've signed the contract, and none of the bullies have bullied again. And basically, on the 2nd to the 6th of February 2014, we held Anti-Bullying Week. Basically, our aim during Anti-Bullying Week is to create awareness, to show the school population that bullying can be eradicated and bullying is a wrongful act. And we had many events during that week, such as we had a cookie sale, we're going to have a workshop next week for parents and for teachers. Then we're also going to have a Mufti Day, which is basically a casual dress-up day in which students will show their support by wearing blue, which shows that they are against bullying. Basically, we are student-led. We have a parent liaison, and we have a teacher advisor who we ask for assistance when needed, and also they help us in solving any issues that we may have.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Okay. So we got to the end of it, of the slideshow, with about 2 minutes to go. I was hoping it would be about 10. But anyway, if there are any questions, please ask them now. And certainly don't ask me. Do ask any of the team here, because they're more than willing to explain anything in further detail to you. Are there any questions at all? Okay. Well, I've asked the sort of one question about what you actually found most interesting about being in the ETeam. I mean, we're painting a picture here that says that partnerships work and everything works well, but is it true? I mean, are there difficulties that sometimes we encounter, and do sometimes some of these projects fall flat on their face? Is that true? Yeah, can?
I find just the logistics of a large school. I mean, Mr. Julian does an amazing job heading. He could give you the figures on the number of students, teachers, support staff. Sometimes the bigger the project gets and the more successful it becomes, the harder it is actually to maintain, because the communication is harder. Trying to email, phone calls, verbal, face-to-face time becomes much harder to do when your group gets bigger and more successful. And I think, as you were saying, the only way to make that work is to delegate, to have trust in other people to take over their roles and do their role well, because you can't do it all yourself. And I think that's one of the big things that we've been learning, is that we can't do it all ourselves, but if we ask people to get on board, we let them show their enthusiasm, and we can do it as long as we keep those the communication going, which is probably the hardest part.
Any more questions? Any at all? Okay, well, thank you very, very much for your patience and for bearing with us. We didn't mean to sort of arrive late. In fact, we weren't late at all, but we just didn't find where we were supposed to be. But thank you very much for giving us your support and your time in watching through our slideshow and listening to our presentation. Thank you.